Welcome to Beyond the Boundary.
Then, okay,
pretty spot on.
It brings me to something else then, and I genuinely would love to know your honest reaction about this. So, women's cricket spent around 30 years trying to earn a seat at the table that the men built. My question is it time to build a different table entirely?
If those two tables have equal access to everything, then possibly. It's really hard to unwind like the historic nature of where we are and why we are where we are. So at the moment, the broadcast deals aren't equal. The fan base is not equal. The access to the facilities is not equal. The way the schedule is done is not equal. So in order for the new table to be built, you would need to be really quite certain that you could play with each other, but with some level of equality. Otherwise, what happens is that the men's level down starts to chew that space, and then you're competing with a beast that's way bigger than what it currently is. So I feel like we need to create a new table that's got both men and women around it, rather than trying to squeeze or argue for one seat or two seats. I think the game would benefit from a new table being built for everyone.
Sure. Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, always a good shout, BC. But, like you said, this isn't something that can be fixed overnight, and it's deep rooted into the systemic and governance issues, if I dare say. But cricket's governance is essentially run by the ICC, of course, and the big three, which is BCCI, the ECB, and Cricket Australia. And again, right, this is where the power flows, and it has been a long running conversation. And you've sat inside these rooms. So do you leave that world with optimism that there will come a fine day that cricket governs itself, or is it far more complicated than that?
I think it's complicated. I think the principles are simple. But I think it's complicated because of where we've come from. And so that creates... Is it complicated or is it complex? It's complex.
Hey, I'm not going to debate anything you say.
No, you should. I'd encourage it. What is it? Complicated means that it's hard to work out, but once you've worked it out, you can work it out. Complex is like almost like a different problem every day. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I think it's complex. So the governing board of the sport should be operating in the best interests of the sport. And that goes beyond financial interest. That goes across the globe, best interests of the sport. Unfortunately, the way that sport's structured, not just the ICC, but sport in general, when you've got some of the models that operate, you represent one level to then represent that group at the next level and at the next level. And whilst ever you're doing that, there's conflicts of interest. So I think it would be worthwhile cricket considering how it governs in the interests of the sport, not of any individual part of that, because everyone across the globe should have a right to access the sport. And at the moment, that's difficult because of the way that it's structured. Some people are unseen, and therefore they don't have an opportunity to advocate for themselves. So it depends on your agenda. If your agenda is to make the most money, then perhaps we're in the right spot. If your agenda is to create a sport that is growing, and thriving and flourishing in all corners of the globe, then I'd argue we're not quite on the right page yet.
Yeah. Well, fair shout again. But again, like segueing into my next point, which is, cricket's pushing hard and trying to develop pathways and essentially expand into the developing countries. And United States is one such good example where they hosted the T20 World Cup a couple of years back, and now with the Olympics 2028 campaign. So for you particularly, you've seen what it takes to build a sport somewhere completely new. And what does it actually feel for a sport to feel like, you know what, I'm in a place of home? Or like that feels like home. Sorry.
Yeah, I think there's two things that need to be in place. The first is the exposure. It needs to be interesting, inspiring, and I need to know what this thing looks like when it's at its best. And I think cricket's got they understand that bit. Like, that's why the Major League Cricket was critical.
Absolutely.
That's why all the short form, the IL T20, all that's why that's critical, right? You need good players coming in, and you need to demonstrate that this is when it's working well, this is what this game looks like. Cricket's fragmented at the moment because the next bit underneath that is like, now I need to get the kids in the country playing. So it's a long-term strategy. And if you're not got the kids in the country playing, then you are creating a fan base for that sport. You're not creating a pipeline or a really deep understanding of the sport. And that's often a generational shift. So in the US, I think the challenge is not the MLC part. I think they've done pretty well with that. The challenge is who and how are they making sure that every boy and girl in that country understands what this game is, has a bat and ball in their hand. That costs money. Who is charged with the responsibility of doing that? And how are they going to operate, whether it's a major league franchise or the governing body, USA Cricket? How are they going to work together to make that happen? That's a 30, 40-year journey. And I think the issue that the US has got, they've had fits and starts, and they haven't stuck to the plan for long enough. And so they keep going back to square one with the communities. And so I think that's the lesson. I think there's more girls playing cricket in the world than ever before, but there's nowhere near enough girls playing cricket. And you can play that out across new markets as well.
I mean,
absolutely.
To draw like a comparison, when you look at the UAE, for example, I mean, we kicked off our campaign in 2007, and it's been an uphill journey for us to get to where we are. I think we're right now ranked number 15 in the world. But if you look at the team,
and
it's all...
we recently even got ODI status. I mean, the women's team. So good on them.
Yeah. But we still don't have any locals playing, right? We're all expats who have formed the UAE women's cricket team, and there's always a question that comes back saying, do you have any locals playing? Do you have Emiratis who are from the country actually participating in the sport? Because it's not culturally relevant to them. So if you had to go into the US and not, because the South Asian diaspora will immediately connect with this, and there's a huge population of that in the US. But if you had to go back to the core Americans who follow their baseball and their NFL and NBA and things like that, is there a way to sort of, I know you and I, these were one of the sort of the core issues that we were trying to solve and in the Future Leaders program with storytelling. And I know the girls came up with something really cool, but I guess I just want to know from your perspective, what do you think should be done? Keeping aside all the marketing stuff, that's a very easy fix going into the World Cup, which I'm sure they'll make a really good campaign out of. But if you really had to go into grassroots, how do you connect a non-cricket loving culture to actually fall in love with the game?
Well, I think you find the pockets that are most likely to respond. So, I don't know the US well enough, where there might be a leaning towards, we could actually, whether it's like a total lack of sport or or they're super sporty and it's just another one of the 15 things they do. I don't know what the demographics in each area would be, but find an area, resource it up, get into the schools, get a few influential people, possibly tie some community outcomes to it, and start the ball rolling. Just do something. Don't try and do the entire country in one hit with, billions of dollars. It's just not going to happen. But what if every owner of a franchise team, club, and these people have a lot of money, businesses and individuals, right? They are funding the total, like, the professionalization of, like, it's remarkable. I can't get my head around it. What if
Absolutely.
what if the tax to do that was 5% of what you're spending there, and that money then goes into making a difference in a country, not across the world, but in a country for a period of time? Take the US, and for 10 years you plow that tax into that country and you do it in a methodical way. The ICC is very good at developing the game from the bottom up. They've got teams on the ground to do that. How do you do that so that you leave a lasting legacy in that country before you go and start working over there and then over there and over there? So there's a lot of money in the game, but it's not necessarily flowing to achieve that objective of getting kids in countries where cricket's not native for them to be playing. But yeah, I feel like if you pooled your resources and your effort, then you could make a bigger dent in that than what we are at the moment. Still a hard slog, but I think you'd make more progress if the entrepreneurial spirit that is alive and well in T20 franchise cricket applied itself to the community.
And we're hoping
and
that
kind of
we can reach all of them.
and that kind of ties into your previous point, right? Where you said that, given it's a new nation, a developing nation, of course they have the money, they have the resources, and with the MLC, those resources are being put to use again for a men's league. But there's definitely some form of an issue where the pipeline is struggling to kind of translate that into the women's game. So do you think the women's game's better served by building its own flagship moments instead of just inheriting the men's calendar?
I think internationally, the women are playing T20 World Cups more regularly than the men, and have been for 10 plus years for this very reason.
Yeah.
They're playing less Test cricket for this very reason. You need to be targeted in the way and strategic around the way that you build things up. Because if you just throw all your money at one thing, or you throw it at like too many things, nothing sticks. So if I was like, I feel like the US, if they wanted to improve their women's game quickly, they need a major league women's comp, and they need it fast. And they need, that's expensive. But I feel like something needs to happen to stimulate that. They need it in the university system. They need it on the television. They need a high quality product that gets the community comfortable with seeing women play the game that they're seeing the men play now. I feel like they need to do that in order to spin this wheel. If they rely on a traditional approach, I feel like it's just going to take 150 years, and we probably will never get there. If it's not the T20 comp, it's something else that sparks. It's pull all the softballers over. It's the lacrosse players. It's the talent transfer. Do something that actually inspires the college level athletes to come across And cricket will look
Absolutely.
different. It won't be technically correct, but I don't care. They just need
Yeah.
people playing. They need to get some
Pathways
things.
developed.
Yeah,
Because
I
I
want to
mean,
take
the
take kids.
NCAA, like their collegiate sports, is such a big deal in the US, and I feel like they're one of the countries who've really gotten that right. In terms of getting that college level eliteness from that sort of state, and the scholarships that they have in place, and the pathway that they have is great. So I mean, why not try to include cricket within that space and grow that opportunity? Because from there you'd then get more infrastructure as well, because then maybe colleges would invest in building cricket grounds, or building facilities where they could train indoors at least. So no, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. That transition obviously is then smoother and, dare I say, easier, but it exists. So that's a start.
Yeah, no, absolutely, that's for sure. If you
Yeah. So go ahead.
No, go for it. I know you had that question in your head. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, this is a bit of a double-edged sword. But as we all know, right, the Ashes is sacred in cricket culture. And there's obviously a conversation that I personally keep coming back to about the fact that women barely play test matches. They played 3 test matches in 2024 and 3 in 2025. Um, and pretty much Australia, India, and England, right? So, yeah, what do you think is the inherent problem there? Do you feel like people are not supporting the women's game enough with regards to fighting harder for Test cricket? Or, is that nostalgia just dressed up as a principle? Because honestly, and I'm pretty sure Nats will agree as well as you, BC, we've seen Test matches just end in a no result because that extra fifth day isn't there. And
Can I
that's,
just play devil's advocate here though? I just have to play devil's advocate. I loved watching Test cricket. Don't get me wrong; it's my
of
favorite
course,
format ever. I could sit and watch it for
100%
days.
ditto.
However, having said that, I'm putting on a business cap right now with the attention span reducing. Right,
Yeah,
people are consuming shorter form content, and they might not necessarily be engaged to watch an entire game of cricket, let alone for 8 hours, let alone for 5 days. So, does it make commercial sense to push Test cricket in the era of trying to find those right broadcast deals then? Or should we just not give up on Test cricket just yet?
Are you
the
asking me
latter.
or?
Yeah,
I,
I
I,
mean,
it's,
my
it's for
opinion
you,
is the
Niki.
latter. Of
I was just pushing back on what she said, but I wanted to know from your perspective.
course, BC, your
I think,
perspective first.
yeah. So I think Test cricket's got a finance problem. It's not a
Right,
gender
okay.
problem; it's a finance problem. So it's expensive to run domestic structures that create good Test teams, and it's expensive and time consuming to host Test cricket. So I love Test cricket, but there's a problem the way the finances in the game flow
Right.
that make Test cricket difficult.
Hmm.
Whether you're Ireland coming into that, into that structure, or whether you're Australia, it doesn't matter. It costs a lot of money. So I always come back to where is our money best spent? So one option is if you go after Test cricket, you need to totally redo the finances of the game, and you need to fund more people, more countries, and acknowledge that money is just going to be probably a loss leader, but that's what we're going to do with it. If they're not prepared to do that, then Test cricket will, in my view, become smaller and smaller and smaller in the men's game, and it will stay where it is in the women's game. And that'll be a nostalgic play. But I think if the game's going to grow around the globe and become stronger and stronger and become a viable Olympic sport and all that sort of stuff, and it's going to breach into the US market and it's going to whatever, then the shorter format is more likely to achieve that than the other strategy. Now, these things are never either or. They're always a bit of this and a bit of that. And so I think that's why we've landed where we've landed, which is, yes, we have, I think, is it 12 test playing countries in the men's game?
Right. Yep.
They don't all play an equal amount. The test championship's thrown on the top to give it credibility, but it's like a bit of a mush underneath that because some teams play a lot and some teams don't play much. There's no test championship for the women because there's not enough test cricket played. West Indies were meant to play Australia in a test in the recent series and the test got
That's right.
bunted.
They decided against it. Yeah.
Because finances don't make any sense to do it. So I feel like there's just a clash of what we want it to be and what it is. And to intervene in that system, I think you need a much harder push, throwing a lot of money at the test game. I can't see it. I can't see it happening. Yes, I love watching the teams play test cricket. I just don't think that's the growth agenda that the sport needs.
Then I'm going to bounce into something that Aashu and I actually, when we were on the phone last night, rambling, trying to think of, okay, let's try and think about the flow this way. We talked about an interesting point that Aashu actually brought up, which was commercialization versus empowerment. And I think Aashu had something that she came across, which I think she should take on because she mentioned this, and I was like, wait, are you for real right now?
Yeah, well, again, right, it's one of those where should we push the women's cricket in a way where it becomes its own market with pink stumps, pink equipment, brands that essentially cater to women, which personally I think is stupid. Sorry. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but either way, right? Which is where the whole commercialization versus empowerment debate comes in, because are you really trying to cater to a market as a niche, or like why can't we just blend the two as cricket versus separating them from a gender perspective?
Didn't you call it something? I feel like you said something last night.
Yeah, I was just like, hey, this feels like a pink it, shrink it campaign.
Pink it, shrink it. Well, I think like this is always the challenge with trying to grow something. You've got an existing fan base that probably loves a bit of test cricket, bit of one-day cricket, bit of T20. Like you've got a pretty good fan base, and if you just think about the history of the sport, it's a bigger fan base than it's ever been before. It's not big enough, but it's big. So how do you hold those people interest, respect their desires and wishes at the same time that you're going for new markets? And I don't think this is a problem that's just cricket related. I think it's just any new product that's got an existing fan base. It's tricky. And that's where I think the products of cricket can play into that. So if I said to you, okay, existing fans in the women's game, you're going to get primarily one-day cricket. You get a smattering of test cricket just to sort of make you happy for a bit. You're going to get that. But really what we're doing with the T20 version, this is where we're trying to attract new markets, kids, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think cricket's set up well to do that. But you need to sort of hold the one-day cricket in place. So the men's game is saying one-day cricket is irrelevant. It's test cricket or it's T20, and this one-day thing doesn't fit any.
Yep.
Yeah. If you apply that same thinking to the women's game, you're going to end up in trouble. The women's game is built on the back of one-day cricket and T20 cricket. And so if you can hold those two products, the fact that the men's have got three is in my view, it's actually a bit of a problem, and they're now trying to whack one away. We don't need to be fighting for three. We've got two really good ones, and the other one can just be a niche. It's test cricket that's the niche. One-day cricket is fine. It's good when it's played at a high quality. The World Cups are amazing. Like, it's great. The pink stumps, your idea about pink it and shrink it, that's T20 cricket in my view. That's what it's doing. It's trying to get new customers in. It's trying to like excite people. It's trying to get kids involved. It'll probably become shorter over time. In 30 years' time, it'll be 15 overs. The guys take too long to play it. The women want to play for longer as well. Like, they need to keep it short and sharp and hitting that window. As soon as it becomes traditional fan base, you've then got to find another product for the new fans. So anyway, I don't know enough about building products and markets, but that's sort of how I think about it.
No, that's definitely very interesting. That's definitely interesting. So we've kind of gone from past to present, and then we're sort of segueing into the future now. And I guess you mentioned earlier that you studied physiotherapy, and then in your 20s you captained the squad, and then ran an organization, multiple committees that you were part of. And then you also did an advanced management program at Harvard Business School, which I only found out yesterday because of Aashu, who did that bit of research. And I was like, hey, I met her and I had no idea, which is amazing, by the way. And now you've got
all the love for BC.
yeah. And now you've got your leadership playground, right? I mean, we met because of a program that you've sort of curated with the ICC, where you're building that next generation of future leaders. And we talked about this quite extensively, of be the leader that the sport needs, which is stuck in my head. It's ingrained in my head right now because of that. And I guess my question for you is then, at what point did leadership stop being something you were doing and sort of start becoming something you were actively studying? Like, how did that go hand in hand for you?
Good question. I was
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Great question.
I was a bit of an accidental captain. Like, I hadn't captained lots of teams on my journey through the pathway, or junior state teams or anything, because I was playing other sports. I was never really entrenched in the pathway. But then when I did become part of it, like sort of 18, 19 is when I got probably more serious about it. The leadership opportunity came quickly and deep, very quick. Like, so age 22, not captaining anything. Age 23, captaining a club, a state, and a national team. So it just went like bang. So I was operating purely on instinct around what actually should this be. I had people around me that were helping, but it was a bit of a light touch. So that was like a opportunity to explore and follow your instincts and just do what you think's the right thing to do. I'd been around sport a long time, so I understood sort of how that operated. When I went into the work environment and I was exposed to a whole range of other thinking, other people, that's where I really started to learn lots about different people, getting the best out of people. Because on a cricket team or in a sporting context, it's pretty easy to line people up for achieving something. In a work context, it's not quite so easy. And when it's a work context, then it's in an influencing way rather than a hard sort of direct line control of power. Which is how I was operating in most of my working life. That's a totally different story again. So I learnt more as I went along. And then I just got to a point where I thought, you know what, I need to do something a bit different, just because I'm curious and I'm just like, I just need to take a U-turn here. And I was thinking about what is it that I could do that would be interesting to me and I think useful for others. And that's where I landed on, you know what, I feel like I've been bumbling my way through leadership for about 30 years. I've worked out some things. I haven't worked out everything, but I feel like I can help people that are on that journey. But I'm also super curious to keep learning and seeing what other people do. So I've, just been on a bit of a, curiosity punch to say, like, how do different people do this and in different contexts and different situations? And that's probably how it all started from a desire to do something a little bit different to what I was doing.
Is it safe to say that
Oh,
this sort of helped you find your ikigai to some extent?
Yeah, probably. Well, that's probably what I was looking for. But my initial question was, what the hell could I do? Not how do I get these 4 circles to interlock? It was like my fundamental question was, oh my goodness, what are my options here?
Yeah.
And this was the one that was of most interest, and then I had to find a way to make it do the ikigai thing. But the first question was, oh my goodness, what could I do?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
and like you said, right, you've spent 3 decades trying to reshape and essentially reshape the women's game, and like this is probably an understatement, but you've done so much, you've achieved so much. You have an award named by you, and again, just out of curiosity, you don't have to name names, but do you feel like there's a structural problem that no goodwill in the world can fix?
No.
Pretty quick there.
Because I feel like if people don't have hope that something can change, then they just stop and they stop pushing. And I think the evolution of the sport, or well, let's just take cricket as an example. If people stop trying, stop pushing, stop asking the questions, stop agitating, stop having the conversations, then everything just stops and it probably starts to go backwards. So as much as cricket's got some challenges, and it's also got some amazing things that are happening that 20 years ago we just think like, I can't believe this sport's basically reinvented itself. That's what's happened. We can focus in on the stuff that's not working or the yesteryear, but the reality is it's continually shaping and moving. So you either get in and help shape and move, or you get out of the way, because someone is going to shape and move. And so play your part, do something that's going to be constructive that you believe in. Otherwise, the game stops. And if the game stops, it dies.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think there was a moment where you thought, I need to understand why this works versus what works?
Yes. So, understanding not just why something works, but why someone thinks something works is important.
Right.
So finding what actually drives people to do what they do, how they do it, is really important. And so it's always just another question, or ask the question rather than give an opinion, so that you can start to find what it is actually that's driving that belief, that assumption, that approach. Because until you get to that, you actually can't find solutions to things. And I think in the perfect world, solutions are found by people finding what's common and then actually plotting the path forward. As soon as you get into a fight and you are encouraged to take your corners, it's really hard to get people come out of their corner without feeling shameful or wronged. And so the last thing you want to do is back someone into a corner. I think what you want to do is try and understand and then help them, and also be open for them to be teaching you, oh, that's why you think that. That makes perfect sense. Now I understand. Now I understand why it took X time to do Y. Because you were nervous about A, B, and C. I was not nervous about those things, but I can understand that you were nervous about those things. So it's just
Yeah. I mean, the sport itself produced extraordinary talent like yourself. I mean, that's a prime example of the person that you are and what you're doing for the sport today. But I feel like it's also very patchy at producing the right kind of leaders. And you run a whole business, the Leadership Playground, based on fixing essentially that gap, right? Why do you think sport struggles with this, and what has cricket not gotten right when it comes to bringing up those leaders from within the sport?
I think cricket does a pretty good job relative to some other sports, and the reason for that is that when you captain a cricket team, you make decisions. Often if you're playing a sport and you're the captain, the coach is making the decisions from the sideline and you're just this sort of spiritual leader that does whatever. You don't have a microphone, you don't have an earpiece, you don't have any of that. You are out there on your own making those decisions. So I think having the confidence to make the decision is important, and I think cricket sets that up reasonably well. In terms of like, there's a dynamic between administration and players that sometimes doesn't facilitate the players sort of staying in the game as administrators. I think they stay in the game as coaches and they stay in the game as broadcast
Absolutely.
and other things. But I feel like sport sometimes gets a little bit caught on, oh no, I'm the president, or I'm the secretary, or I'm the whatever. So therefore, I'm now the one in power, and I make the decisions. Whereas I feel like as people get to that point, they should be opening the doors and encouraging others and supporting other people to come through the door. A lot of people do that, but I feel like sometimes that doesn't happen because there's a bit too much to lose once you've reached the top of the pyramid. So yeah, I believe that sport sets you up well to lead, and then you've got to be sort of courageous enough to step into the space and challenge convention in a sport it's got a long history. It's typically been run by males. It won't always be. There's dynamics going on in the sport now which are complex. We've talked about that. You need diverse thinking to solve complex problems. And so it's the time's right for people inside sport to be sharing different perspectives and views, because I feel like if we don't do that, we're just going to keep getting what we've always got.
And hopefully reaching a point where it's just called cricket and not men's and women's cricket. But, weaving back into the whole leadership playground business that you've started, which focus specifically on girls aged 10 to 15. Again, we've obviously covered that grassroots is crucial to the development of these girls then going on to pursue cricket as a career, essentially. But on an unserious note, what do you think is the most unfiltered and brutally honest thing a kid has said to you in one of your sessions?
What have I had? I've had someone the other day said, you know what, feedback's really important. And I said, yes, it is. And she said, and so you adults need to listen to what we want in programs like this. And I went like, and I said, yes, we do. I'm looking forward to your survey results.
Oh my God.
But sometimes they say things like that, and I think, oh, you're right. You're right.
Spot on.
I mean,
Spot on. I mean,
that's what a kid feel. Yeah.
Literally, if you want the truth, speak to a kid. They hold up a mirror.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate. At the time, I didn't appreciate it, but as I was driving home, I was thinking, you know what? That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
She hit the nail on the head.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, I find, with everything you've done, which you've pretty much built on your own definitely with a lot of support. But what we find genuinely fascinating is that you led a team that was playing for absolutely nothing financially, and on the edge of public relevance in a sport that barely registered in the mainstream press. So in some ways, and this can sound quite awful, but I wonder if it actually built something in those players that a well-funded environment didn't essentially do.
Well, I think it was very egalitarian. So when no one gets anything, that's sort of refreshing, because there is no doubt that you add money into the equation and you start to go into drafts and you get contracts that are like posted up on the internet around who's earning what. So firstly, we didn't have to contend with that, which was great.
Right.
Secondly, they were there by choice, making choices and sacrifices to do this. So generally speaking, they were accountable and responsible for their own attitudes and efforts and activities. So,
Yeah.
on the flip side, it's also clear that like if you didn't, we had high standards. So if you didn't live up to where the expectations were, there was someone else to come into that team and you'd miss out. So there was it's clear in sport if you're not, you can't hide from your effort and your results, right? So that regardless of whether you're playing 100 years ago or today, that holds true.
Absolutely.
But we did a lot with not much. So when people say, "Oh, we can't do X unless we have Y," it's like, well, can you? Like, we built a pretty good team. We had staff that were hardly paid, like literally like $1,000 for a year worth of work. We had players that weren't paid; they were taking leave without pay. We had fun. We pushed each other. We won a lot, and they're all still good mates today. So I don't know. I don't know that I'd swap it. If I'm honest,
Listen,
I'd like a bigger
right?
bank balance. I don't know that I want to trade it for all the other stuff that goes with it.
Of course, right? And honestly, that's not too much to ask for. But I can safely say this, both Nats and I, the Australian women's team has continued to be our favorite because they've set different platforms across I don't know how many realms at this point, and they continue to just take things forward. So
I
good on
remember
you, good on them.
we were at the World Cup in Melbourne 2020 for the finals,
Yeah,
and we obviously went for a couple of matches, and we had an
I
opportunity to
wanted to
actually
mention that earlier, but yeah,
we actually interacted with a few of them, and I think our respect for them went a bit higher just because of how down to earth they are. I mean, I think we had Megan Shoot walk by us twice, going like, "Hey, are you guys good? Did you guys get our autographs?" Like, just checking
autograph.
in
Yeah,
if we've fulfilled all of your wishes. So I think I think that tournament set it apart for us in terms of it. You can tell a lot about a team just by the way the players are. They're a reflection of the culture that Cricket Australia have set. So if you could, if you could go back in time and go back to that version of yourself that was handed Australian captaincy, what is something that she needed to hear in that moment which you wish someone had told you?
I I I think it would have been helpful to probably back off a little bit at times. So I was super driven. I was clear what we were trying to achieve. I did the work. If someone wasn't doing the work, like that probably warranted more of a conversation from me than just like, okay, well, that's your choice. We'll go on to the next person. So I learned that as I went along, but I could, yeah, that's probably the one thing that I wish I'd learnt earlier than I did.
yeah.
And
And
that's probably not
sorry,
that probably flows into a work environment too. Like I've just like, that's where we're going. Get on the train, get off the train. Your choice. So I have learned over time that there's different reasons why people get on that train or not, and I've stopped to ask that question now. I wouldn't have sort of 20 years ago.
and like you
Are we
already
good?
mentioned, go
No,
ahead.
go for it. No. Mine's completely
No,
irrelevant. Go for it.
I mean, we can add that in it as well. So, but like you mentioned earlier, just sports across the board is known to produce extraordinary talent. But it is patchy at producing leaders. And you run a whole business that's trying to essentially fill that gap. But in your opinion, why do you think sports struggles with that? And do you think there's something cricket hasn't gotten right? Because the attitude is, just perform and we'll work out the rest later.
Oh, I think we touched on this a bit before.
Oops.
I think. Yeah, that's all right.
We touched on that one, Aashu.
I don't know where to hide. I mean, well, we'll choose the best bit. Let's just say.
I'll go back to my irrelevant question. I'll go back to my irrelevant question. I can hear the doggo in the background. Is he going to be making an appearance?
I promise.
No appearance.
I promise I'm like tunnel visioned and focused. Okay, I just probably lost track there, but I'm sorry. My apologies.
It's okay. Don't stress.
It's all good. It's all good.
Never mind.
No, we won't have an appearance from the pup.
No, okay. All right.
I've gone to great lengths to make sure this is professional.
Okay. Okay, then I guess we'll probably like move towards the end of this. Sort of touching base on. You're probably not going to like this segment as much, but this is going to be all praise BC. So you have a statue outside of the STP. You've got Richie Bennett on one side, Steve Waugh on the other side, and the first female cricketer in the world to have one. I want to sit with that image for a second, and not just because it's an honor, but it's a profound statement, right? I think I want to understand when that happened. What did you feel like? What was that like for you?
Well, when I got the call to say this is what we'd like to do, I couldn't comprehend. I'm like, oh my God, how embarrassing. That's what I thought at the start. Like, how embarrassing.
I love that.
How is this even going to happen? Like, I have no idea about the process. And then I got sort of like, oh my goodness. So I was embarrassed and then I was excited. So how does it feel? It's sort of like weird. Like you see yourself in photos, like you know what it feels like to do things, like to play cricket and to do stuff. You know what that feels like. You don't know what it looks like until you watch the video, but the video is two-dimensional. The photos are two-dimensional. So being able to like have someone create you in real life size and be able to walk around. I'm not a big gamer, so I don't know what that's like to put on the goggles and walk. Like that was like weird, really weird. I was at the SCG a couple of days ago and I walked past it and I just look at it and smile and just think, oh, I remember the day when we veiled that, and it was a fun day and I had all the family there and some teammates and whatever. So
yeah, well, I was just going to ask you, have you just nonchalantly walked by your own statue and been like super casual about it? But I guess we covered that already.
Well,
yet again.
I keep getting photos. People send me photos of themselves with the statue. I get that a lot, so that makes me laugh that everyone still does that. So that's pretty fun.
That's fair. That's a fair shout.
Yeah, and to nearly wrap it up for me. The question behind the question, right? Like, and I'll let Nats take it from here.
What's the thing that you set out to change in the sport that you think is not done yet?
I think two things. I think at its core, having little girls be given cricket bats at Christmas time in numbers equal to little boys being given cricket bats. I think that's a cultural shift. And it means that if they're being given cricket bats, there's somewhere for them to play and their mates are probably playing. And so it's just a symbol of acceptance. So I think I think that's probably the first thing. And then the second thing is, so that's not done, and we've still got a lot of work to do to carve that one out. And then the second one is, I feel like the era I grew up in, I was super lucky that there was just remnants of a pathway, almost like half crooked steps that you could step on. You could sort of find the next one if you looked hard enough, and you could do that. And I was from a town, 160 kilometres from Sydney, in a country that's pretty well off, if we're being honest, around what freedoms and access and etc.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I feel like internationally we haven't got that bit done yet, where girls from more countries can find those steps for themselves, and they're legitimate steps to somewhere. So there's the little girl with the dream and the bat, and then there's like, okay, well now we need to honour that more globally than what we're currently honouring that. Yeah,
And I
we've got
love
some
how
work.
naturally this is flowing, right? Because I was just about to ask you, do you think there's someone on your radar, someone that you're watching right now, potentially a player or a young administrator, and someone who's trying to climb the ladder through the system, where you go like, okay, I think she's the one, or she could be the
Essentially,
one,
your protege.
pretty much.
Well,
I mean, hey,
I
BC's the OG, but
yeah,
she would then be a version of her, like she'd just be her own self.
I just think it'll be many people, the same as there's
Awesome.
been
Yeah.
many people that have been in front of me, beside. Like I certainly don't feel like I've played the major part in all of this. I've played a part. So many people, and I just feel like the coalition of the willing. We need lots and lots of people, which is why I think globally we need to keep finding people and connecting them, because it's a lonely world when you feel like you're the only one, whether it's the only player or the only advocate or the only one around the table. Like, we just need to keep joining these
Working
people
as a
together.
team. Yeah.
Yeah, both, men and women, boys and girls. We just need to keep, it's going to take some creative thinking to get to where we need to get to, which means we need different heads around the problem.
I think
BC, you continue to be graceful and humble as always.
No, I just to sort of pull all of this together. If I'm putting you on a bit of a spot here, but with Ashu and I both being, currently active in the sport and trying to change things in our own little ways, is there something that you'd like us to keep in mind, or a piece of advice that you can give us going forward?
I just think that breakthroughs come from sometimes areas that you don't expect them to. So it's often someone that's in a powerful position that all of a sudden gets it, that you've spent time helping to understand, that will crash through something. Or it might be, using a kid's words to like have an impact. But I think just being open to the fact that the answers, the solutions, the movement may come from anywhere in the system. It's not always coming from the most obvious place, and to be just be open to that and work with what is thrown in front of you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah.
Well, dear.
That hit hard. That hit hard. But I promise this is my last question. What do you think is the decision you made that you'd potentially make differently now? Not because it was wrong, but just because you know better and you have better resources.
Oh, good question.
Thank you.
What would I do differently? I I think I think at times there were some things that probably needed to be pushed, but I felt at the time it was the wrong time to push. So what's an example? The BBL, I think we're up to BBL 15 and WBBL 11. So that's in my view, that's 4 wasted years. So at the time, there was some efforts made to we need to do this, but the organisation was so fixated on we need to get this up and we need to get whatever. And I think there comes a point where you say, okay, I've got to stop banging on about that. I've got to find another way around. But the reality is that there must have been another way to get that moving earlier. And every time I see the 4 years, I think it's 4 years gap between the two competitions, I think, oh, what a waste. What a waste.
Yeah.
And and that's why I think the WPL was way too long coming. Way too long.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that through of people saying you need to move, but it was in hindsight, we're obviously going about it the wrong way because we weren't getting the traction. And it's not even my country. I don't even know the people very well, but they were conversations at the ICC Women's Committee to say we need to get this moving. This is critical to the sport. Isn't it?
As they say,
now?
As they say, hindsight's a beautiful thing. And honestly, thank you so much for such an amazing and almost like a very introspective version of your perspective. It's been an honor, and thank you so much for doing this and sending all the love.
Thanks, guys. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
No, I'm glad. I hope that we didn't hound you too much with too many questions, but we truly wanted to pick your brains on the whole emotion side of things as well, because we know you as a person, and whatever. At least I know you a bit better because we've met earlier, but I think trying to deep dive into the person that you are is something that we were very curious about. So thank you for that. Before we get into more pleasantries, I need to end the show and do the whole stuff. So I'm going to do that, and then we can do the other stuff. Okay.
The cringy stuff, the stuff that makes you uncomfortable. But go for it. It's all you.
Gotta try. Gotta do this. Okay. Yes. Thanks for tuning in. You've been listening to Beyond the Boundary and Across the Line production. If this conversation moved you, challenged you a bit, or shifted your perspective, like, share, and subscribe. Visit us at acrosstheline.com for more. Follow our hosts on social. You can even give a shout out to Belinda. She's obviously a legend of the game, and we're so glad she could join us today. So stay curious, keep building beyond the boundary, and remember, in a world full of aggregators, be the architects. Okay, got that out of the way.
Very good.
Wait, is it done recording? Because I want to add something.
No, I'm not. I'll hit stop when we're leaving. So even if we have some bits, that's fine.
Yeah, I was just going to say, please continue to give DC the credit she deserves. And just the way this episode, podcast, or rather story, that's how I would put it, has impacted us. We're really hoping that it impacts hopefully millions others, which would serve both you and us very well. But yeah, it just has a positive impact, if so to speak. So thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, and have a great. You said you're going on a trip as well, right? So have a good.
Going to New Zealand on Friday. So
you probably need a coffee after this one.
No, that's all good. I think we're going to get rain, unfortunately. That's okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you taking
a run?
All right. Take care. See you.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks,
we'll be in touch. Thank you so much.